So this week we continue with the epic battle between Sukuna and Gojo. Literally out of nowhere, Gojo uses a brand new move that we haven't seen him use before, and to be honest, he says some pretty questionable things at the end of this chapter, but before I spoil anything else, let's get right into it. The chapter starts with Kusakabe asking everyone if anyone's been seriously punched by Gojo. Panda says that he tried but it couldn't hit. Yuta says that he got hit with Limitless once but it wasn't serious. Kusakabe then explains that Gojo overlaps the effects of blue, which sucks in things and enhances his fist with curse energy. Hikari adds that it feels like getting hit from something harder even though it's just a normal punch. Kirara asks if it hurts, to which Yuta and Hikari answer that they both threw up. So this is pretty interesting. We're getting a little bit more of a detailed explanation as to exactly what's going on when Gojo does that move that he's been doing to Sukuna, where it kind of looks like he's sucking him in with his fist when he pulls back and then just nails him right in the face or the body immediately afterwards. So to my understanding, along with the Limitless, he also kind of coats his body in blue, which in a way kind of just makes his whole entire body or just his fist an attractive force, right? And then enhancing his fist with curse energy allows him to deliver a pretty heavy blow once he finally draws you in. Pretty funny that Hikari and Yuta both threw up when they got punched like this. Just goes to show how much of a true tank Gojo is, right? And it's likely that we're going to start to see kind of the full arsenal of Gojo's abilities, more so outside of like the big domain expansion stuff, maybe more nuanced moves, since the first round of just straight up domain expansions is kind of over now, since Sukuna and Gojo's brains were both damaged pretty heavily in the previous chapter. So domain expansions for both fighters at this point is pretty much off the table. Yuji says Nanami had once told him to not compare himself with Gojo if Yuji wants to aspire to be a sorcerer. In this little flashback that Yuji has of him, Nanami adds, long story short, it feels like I can't keep up with this shit. So here we go, we get a Nanami mention in this chapter. Always great to see, I really miss Nanami. So what's really interesting is that when they're talking about Nanami in this page, we see Ino sneakily appear in the bottom right corner. And I feel like that's very intentional, because if we go back to when Gojo's preparing for his fight with Sukuna in the first place, and after he acknowledges the death of Nanami after being sealed for the first time, Ino walks in the room and says to Gojo that he has something to talk to regarding that, or something similar. I don't know if I'm digging too deep into it, but I have a pretty big hunch that Ino is going to have something to do with maybe Nanami making a return in some way, maybe through something similar like the seance technique that Granny Mogami lady used. I'm not really sure, but I think that Gege deliberately is connecting Ino with Nanami here, and something's going to happen with them. That's for sure. I just don't know what yet. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. But moving on, back to the battlefield, we see Gojo thrashing Sukuna around everywhere. And it's true, he's literally just pulling his face and throwing him all over the place, literally dragging him through the dirt. Gojo later tries to make all the debris around him get sucked into Sukuna, but he survives. Next, Gojo tries to crush Sukuna with his feet, but Sukuna dodges it and tries to do the same. So these two Gos are just trading blows back and forth, nothing we haven't seen already in previous chapters. But something that we definitely haven't seen in previous chapters is what Gojo does next. Gojo suddenly uses Shadow Clone Jutsu. All the clones simultaneously try to punch Sukuna. So this is awesome. This is a brand new ability that I don't think we've ever seen Gojo use. If I'm wrong, correct me in the comments, but I'm pretty sure we haven't seen Gojo make clones of himself before. And the crazy thing is that these shadow clones seem like they have some kind of physical body to them, like they're not just illusions or after images, because they could actually go in to punch Sukuna. I really hope that this isn't the last that we've seen from this shadow clone ability, because I'm definitely very curious to know if the shadow clones could also use blue or red or even purple. That would be completely insane. So this goes back to what I said earlier, that since the round of domain clashes is over, we're going to be seeing a lot more intricate and nuanced moves from Gojo and probably Sukuna, and that really excites me for round 2, because that means that we're going to be getting a lot of interesting and fun moves from both Gojo and Sukuna, or at the very least new abilities that we haven't seen before like this. Definitely gets me excited for the rest of the fight. Sukuna holds the real Gojo's hand and punches him back, which flies him away, but Gojo grabs onto a traffic light signal and sits on top of it. Maharaga adapts when it receives an attack from an opponent and the wheel turns to spin. Gojo notices that the wheel turns black when Sukuna is using domain amplification, and at that time it cannot adapt. So the reason that Sukuna can use domain amplification is because the damaged brain part is only for domain expansion. So a few things to quickly unpack here. Gojo notices that the wheel disappears when Sukuna uses domain amplification, so at that moment he can't use the ability of Maharaga to adapt to whatever move that Gojo's using. And secondly, domain amplification is possible because the parts of both of their brains that were damaged only affects the use of domain expansion and nothing else seemingly. So that's a pretty interesting detail to add in. Sukuna also notices that Gojo Gojo is only using simple techniques to avoid Maharaga's wheel getting adapted, which makes sense, it's pretty smart. The fight resumes once the signal turns go. Gojo pulls the traffic signal towards Sukuna, but the latter holds it and throws it towards Gojo in high speed. So that's a pretty fun little addition from Gege. I love those little attentions to detail. As this fight has gone on, gives it more of like a movie-like quality to it. So I don't know, just a little detail that I definitely enjoyed. Everyone tries to deduce how many spins would it take for Maharaga's wheel to adapt. Gojo talks to Sukuna and they casually walk around the city that the wheel needs a total of 4 spins to completely adapt to his infinity, and there's still 3 more spins to go. So it looks like we have a countdown timer started now. The wheel needs 4 spins to completely adapt to Gojo's limitless, and it's already turned 1, so we got 3 to go. And I'm not exactly sure, it's not really explained in these leaks, if he means this in the sense of like going down the line and specifically adapting to certain aspects of limitless, like adapting to blue, then adapting to red, things like that, or just generally needs to turn 4 clicks to adapt to limitless, period. Not really sure, but I hope this gets elaborated on when the actual chapter comes out. So you definitely want to subscribe for that, because I will be covering the next chapter as soon as it comes out, and we'll probably be getting very valuable details like that. Either way though, I'm just glad that we're getting more details on the nuances of Maharaga's abilities, because if all Maharaga had to do was just like adapt to one of Gojo's limitless abilities, and that's all it took for him to adapt to everything, that would be way too broken in my opinion. So it's good to know that the wheel has to click 4 times for it to actually fully adapt to limitless. That little detail I think makes things a lot more interesting here. Sukuna laughs at Gojo and tells him it's the countdown to wipe off the smirk off his face, to which Gojo makes a wide grin showing off his teeth and says that goes for both of us. So pretty funny exchange from these two. Gojo of course still being his arrogant self no matter what. Gojo declares that he will kill Sukuna before Maharaga's wheel adapts to his infinity in the next 3 counts. Hana says don't tell me he forgot about Megumi. Yuji says maybe. Kashimo says it's okay to forget about it, and Hana says no it's not. So that's a weird but very interesting detail to add at the end of this chapter. Gojo says that he's gonna straight up kill Sukuna, which leads Hana to point out the next logical thought in that train of thinking, in that if he does that then he's also gonna kill Megumi. So unless Gojo has a specific plan to save Megumi before actually killing Sukuna, this guy just might be going insane right now, losing himself to the fight. It might just be going in for the kill. I mean, I don't blame him, because first things first is getting rid of Sukuna. But also I think it's very interesting that Gege decided to add this in towards the end of this chapter, because it might end up being a little wrinkle in the plan or something. I'm not really sure. But unfortunately we're not going to get to find out until next week, because Jujutsu Kaisen and probably all of Shonen Jump is on break next week for like a holiday or something. But hey, until then, best believe that we're going to be talking about JJK on this channel each and every week, so make sure to subscribe and turn those notifications on, all that great stuff. Let me know what you think about Gojo's new moves in the comments below, or anything else that happened in this chapter. Have an absolutely wonderful morning, night, afternoon, whatever, and I'll see you guys in the next video.